This is your last draw.
John Wayne represented the ideal image of the rugged, macho Hollywood leading man.
Now you boys are going for a nice little ride.
He was the quintessential cowboy and all-American hero in over 150 movies.
John Wayne came to embody an ideal idea of America itself.
His distinct walk and gravelly voice helped make him one of the world's most idolized movie stars.
He wasn't living the typical Hollywood leading man lifestyle. He was, after all, a good old American cowboy.
By the time he died at age 72 in 1979, John Wayne had created a giant legacy as an American icon.
The day he dies, the flame of the Olympic torch at the LA Coliseum, they light it in his honor.
It's a legacy that would continue to grow and would divide his family into opposing sides in a battle over the legend's estate.
He's been dead now for many years, and his family is still squabbling over what he left behind.
Oh, you have no milk of human kindness.
The fame, the fortune, the legacy of John Wayne. John Wayne has been called a flesh and blood symbol of America. Whether playing a soldier, gunslinger, or all-round tough guy, he had swagger before swagger was cool. In movies like Rio Bravo, The Searchers, and True Grit, he portrayed straight-shooting heroic men. He reached iconic status and came to be known as the last Western hero.
Don't say it's a fine morning or I'll shoot you.
For an unprecedented 25 out of 26 years, from 1949 to 1974, Wayne was named one of the top 10 box office stars. Even decades after his death, Wayne still ranks high in public opinion polls of all-time favorite actors. This is the story of all that he left behind. One of the most popular actors of the 20th century, John Wayne is born Marion Robert Morrison in Winterset, Iowa, on May 26, 1907. The first of two sons to marry a former telephone operator and Clyde, a pharmacist.
We all remember the Duke as this big, hulking figure of a man. But, little known fact, it seems like he was born that way. In fact, his birth announcement in his local paper, it registered him weighing in at a whopping 13 pounds at birth.
The family moves to California when he's 7, eventually settling in Glendale. Wayne gets his famous nickname, Duke, from his dog. He spends so much time with the pooch that they become known as Big Duke and Little Duke. For the rest of his life, his friends call him Duke. Wayne's mother is very tough on her son, but in high school, the strapping, handsome young man is popular and gets his fair share of attention.
He was a star football player. Well, that comes as no surprise. But he's also the president of the Latin Society and chairman of the senior dance. He was on the debate team. He won the Essay of the Year award. Frankly, he was quite the scholar.
At Glendale High, he's an outstanding athlete and student, and it leads to a football scholarship at USC. Wayne starts there in 1925, but after 2 years, he suffers a shoulder injury while body surfing. That puts an end to his scholarship.
He's also been earning a little extra money as an extra on movies. And then hanging around the Fox lot, he gets gigs as a prop man, but the bonus for John Wayne was it was there that he met John Ford. And, well, the rest is cinema history.
John Wayne was working as a crew member on one of John Ford's films. Ford was immediately impressed by the size of John Wayne, by the way that he moved, and I think Ford, in his way, very early on saw that there was potentially a great movie actor in this young guy.
But it's another director who gives Wayne his first real break as an actor in 1930. Raoul Walsh hires him for The Big Trail, the first epic Western of the talking picture era, and Wayne's first starring role. His $75 a week paycheck is a big bump up from the $35 he's earning working props.
The studio, they want him to change his name. You know, Duke Morrison just didn't ring American enough, and Marion, frankly, that was out of the question. The director, he suggests John Wayne. And for that movie, Marion Morrison, out the door, and in comes walking John Wayne.
Howdy, folks.
Wayne spends the next 8 years doing a slew of second-rate B-movies, like Riders of Destiny. They're not exactly masterpieces,
Well, you wanted hay, didn't you?
but they provide a perfect training ground for Wayne to hone his acting chops.
Shot in the back, eh? Don't try to talk, Sheriff.
The way that he spoke was part of the John Wayne persona. As a result of having very little formal training as an actor, he learned to use his words very carefully.
I'll take that chance.
It always sounded like somebody who probably didn't really like to talk. He seemed to be more comfortable using bullets than he did words.
I don't like the way that fellow talks. We'll watch him.
As he's climbing up the Hollywood ladder, Wayne marries Josephine Saenz in June of 1933. By the late 30s, his old buddy John Ford comes calling. But what took him so long? Ford casts Wayne in the role that would change his life, Ringo Kid, in the seminal film Stagecoach. He's the lowest paid cast member at about $3,000, but it's a huge step up from the B-movies he's been starring in. Stagecoach becomes the first must-see Western of the talking picture era and is hailed as a masterpiece. It's a huge box office hit and goes on to win 2 Oscars. But filming is brutal for Wayne.
The stories are legend of the way that Ford would humiliate John Wayne, would ridicule him, would accuse him of being a terrible actor, to the point often where other people would step in to intervene. John Wayne did not have to put up with anything from anybody, but he did from John Ford.
In 1940, Wayne co-stars in 7 Sinners with Marlene Dietrich, the first of 3 movies they would make together. He's still married, but he falls for her big time. Reportedly, their on and off affair lasts 20 years and is rumored to contribute to the breakup of his marriage to Josephine Saenz. Wayne divorces Josephine in 1944. They have 4 children.
Josephine gets custody of their 4 children, in addition to the house, a car, $100,000 in securities, and 20% of John Wayne's gross income for the next several years.
In early 1946, Wayne marries his second wife, Esperanza Diaz, a Mexican actress nicknamed Chata. The marriage is volatile from the get-go. Wayne discovers Diaz is a violent alcoholic, and she gets angry with the amount of time Wayne spends working. It's a sign of things to come. But despite the early bumps in the road, they're in love and devoted to each other. And his career is about to get hotter. In 1947, he's both actor and first-time producer in Angel and the Bad Man. It's the first of many films that he would act in and produce.
More whiskey.
Come, gentlemen, let's act like
He felt that apart from the director John Ford, that the only person who could really be trusted to maintain the John Wayne persona and to run the John Wayne persona was John Wayne.
But it's his role in the 1948 Howard Hawks classic Red River that makes Wayne a superstar.
Red River was a very important movie in John Wayne's career. The director, Howard Hawks, saw something in the John Wayne persona. What he saw was someone who was not only very strong, but someone who had a really deep running inner rage. And even John Ford at the time said, you know, I never knew the SOB could act until I saw him in Red River.
While Red River is nearing its release date, Wayne heads to Monument Valley, Arizona to team up again with John Ford on Fort Apache. It's Ford's first installment of his famous cavalry trilogy.
Technically, John Wayne was playing second banana to Henry Fonda in this movie, but to this day, his performance is still considered very, very powerful. And he sticks very, very close to his image as a noble and honorable soldier.
But it's his role as a tough Marine in the 1949 movie Sands of Iwo Jima that brings his best reviews yet and his first Oscar nomination. He stars with Adele Maura in the expensive film. It makes a huge profit for Republic Pictures, and Wayne gets 10% of the gross earnings on top of his salary. Sands of Iwo Jima is a smash hit and helps Wayne break onto the list of top 10 Hollywood box office stars, a list he would continue to dominate for years to come. His earning power and mass appeal are undeniable. Warner Brothers snaps him up for a multi-picture deal. On top of his salary, he again negotiates 10% of the gross for every movie he's in.
The deal that John Wayne makes with Warner Brothers is unprecedented in terms of the amount of money that Wayne is making. It's also unprecedented in terms of the amount of clout it gives him as a movie star. It's an indication of just how much confidence the studio has in the box office power of John Wayne.
John Wayne is one of the most popular stars in America, and his fame and fortune seem to be on a meteoric climb. By the end of the 1940s, John Wayne is proving himself not just a huge Hollywood box office draw and film producer,
Stop jabbering and let's go. Okay.
but also a shrewd businessman. He lands a multi-picture deal with Warner Brothers and continues working at an impressive pace, sometimes making more than 4 movies in a single year.
John Wayne was always the first person to arrive in the morning, even if he was the star of the movie, and he was the one person in front of the camera who was most likely to know the names of everybody who was behind the camera, including the director. And that came from John Wayne's own background in working on the crew. These are things he never forgot.
In January 1950, Wayne places his footprints at Sid Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood. It's a celebrity ritual that started in 1927 and continues to this day. For Wayne's induction ceremony, the cement is mixed with sand from Iwo Jima, Japan.
A surprising thing is revealed when you look at his boot prints as embedded in the cement. The dude had really, really small feet. Even one of his later co-stars, Katharine Hepburn, she even mentions his tiny feet. She calls them a pair of small feet, carrying his huge frame as if he were a feather.
He did have very small feet for a guy who was 6'4". But you look at the way that he walked. He had that tilted forward, purposeful stride. He always looked like he might be about to fall over. He would run the risk of looking like a kind of a massive ballerina walking around like that. But what it tended to give Wayne was a kind of a strange grace. The way John Wayne moved on screen was absolutely a key part of what his appeal was and what his distinction was as a movie star. Nobody moved like him, nobody talked like him.
By the early 50s, Wayne's cranking out one crowd pleaser after another, like Rio Grande, Flying Leathernecks, and The Quiet Man. Directed by John Ford and playing opposite Maureen O'Hara in The Quiet Man, Wayne's performance is hailed by critics as his most convincing leading romantic role. The movie is a big hit in 1952 and is one of the top-grossing films of the year.
The Quiet Man, that was an important piece in pop culture because it inspired directors like, well, Steven Spielberg. Spielberg uses the same kissing scene between John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara in his movie, E.T.
It exposes Wayne to a whole new generation and reminds the world that, as an actor, he's more than just a cowboy in all those westerns. Wayne is one of the first actors to start his own production company, Bat Jack Productions, and he's starting to produce more and more of his movies through his company. It's a smart move, since many of the major studios are moving away from putting actors under contract. He's at the top of his game, but by 1952, his marriage to his second wife, Chata, has fallen apart, and their messy divorce in 1953 is attracting undesirable headlines.
This looks like the standard sort of cross-accusation between two people who've fallen out of love. She claims that he's abusive, he claims she's a fall-down drunk.
Chata gets a lawyer and fights for a healthy financial settlement.
The accountant testifies that John Wayne's worth is about $160,000. Originally, she was asking for $9,400 a month.
Finally, the lawyers are forced to come to an agreement, and the divorce is granted on October 28, 1953. It's finalized a year later.
John Wayne has to pony up almost $500,000 to Chata. $150,000 up front, $20,000 to clear various debts, and $50,000 a year for the next 6 years. Not long after that, though, his lawyers work out a lump sum settlement with Chata for $375,000, clearing him of any further obligations to her. And this is at a time where his income is really going up. He's one of the top box office stars in Hollywood, and he's pulling down about $500,000 a year. Meanwhile, for Chata, it's a sad ending. She has a problem with drinking, and she dies young in 1961.
Meanwhile, Wayne is constantly at work on his dream project, a movie about the Alamo. It's been on his mind since the mid-40s, and as of 1952, he throws himself into developing the project.
From the very beginning, it was also a movie that he wanted to direct. For John Wayne, it was an intensely romantic and attractive way of looking at American history through the mythology of the Western. It was a project that he was willing to bank his entire career and credibility on.
It's during a location scouting trip to Peru for the movie that Wayne meets Pilar Weldy, the Peruvian actress who would become his next wife. In 1953, she comes to America to pursue her first American film, and they pick up where they left off. Less than a month after his divorce is finalized, Wayne marries Pilar on November 1st, 1954 in Hawaii. He's 47, she's 26. They have 3 children in their 17 years together. Throughout all the upheaval in his personal life at the time, Wayne keeps making movies, and he makes one of his most overtly political films to date, the 1952 anti-communist movie Big Jim McLean. Most reviews of Big Jim McLean are harsh. The New York Times says, "No one deserves credit for this film." Yet by 1954, he's at his peak and has his choice of roles. No one expects the one he chooses next. The Conqueror is a screenplay written for Marlon Brando, but he's not available. John Wayne wants it, and wants it bad. The role? Genghis Khan.
It's really strange, if not absurd, that he wants to play a 12th century Mongolian warlord. Maybe he's looking to stretch his acting muscles. It's probably one of the worst decisions of his entire career. That performance winds up being judged as one of the 10 worst performances of all time.
Released in 1956, the film is notorious for another reason. It's filmed in the Utah desert, downwind from the Nevada test site, where atomic weapons have been detonated. And the area is full of radioactive fallout.
Of the 220 people who were on the cast or the production crew, 90 or 91 of them ended up coming down with cancer, and half of those 90 died. Some public health professionals say that this was tantamount to an epidemic.
It will be over 20 years later, but John Wayne will become part of those statistics. That same year, Wayne releases another film, The Searchers. It's considered the pinnacle of the collaboration between Wayne and John Ford. His performance gets rave reviews.
He plays Ethan Edwards, and reportedly that's his favorite movie role ever. He even names one of his own sons Ethan. And one of Wayne's most often quoted lines from the movie actually inspires a hit song. A character in the movie tells him, "I hope you die," and he responds, "That'll be the day." Buddy Holly heard that and turned it into a smash hit the next year.
Wayne is dominating the big screen, and at the same time, his old movies play on TV. He also starts guest starring on some TV shows.
Wayne embraced television up to a point, kind of most famously, for example, when Gunsmoke came on the air in the 1950s. Wayne introduced the entire series. Wayne might have anticipated that eventually the medium where his legacy would be confirmed would probably be on television, where increasingly older movies were being shown.
Wayne gets back to making a few movies in quick succession. He teams up with director Howard Hawks again for the 1959 Western Rio Bravo. As Sheriff John T. Chance, Wayne is treading familiar territory. He's also becoming inextricably linked to the characters he plays. But he makes a clear distinction. Wayne is quoted as saying, "The guy you see on the screen isn't really me. I'm Duke Morrison, and I never was and never will be a film personality like John Wayne. I know him well, I'm one of his closest students. I have to be. I made a living out of him. By now, he's ready to start filming his labor of love, The Alamo. He's the star, producer, and first-time director. After years of planning, researching, and considering many locations, Wayne decides the epic has to be shot in Texas. It only adds to the cost and the pressure on him and his company.
The movie is more expensive than any other movie that's ever been made. Reportedly, it cost $14 million to make this movie. They say that it will have to gross $17 million before Wayne even makes a profit. Wayne poured tons of his own money into this project. In fact, he mortgaged his home, took money out of his production company, and put other assets into the project in order to fund it.
Everything is riding on The Alamo. But will it make him or break him? By 1960,
Come on, get together.
John Wayne has over 120 movies to his credit.
Now let's do this job right.
But he's taken a huge risk by putting everything he's got into his pet project, The Alamo. Wayne goes all out to publicize his movie. According to Daily Variety, the press campaign includes 184 pages of material sent to 10,000 columnists, government officials, and others. They call it the longest single press release ever sent out for a Hollywood movie.
The release and the promotion of The Alamo was an interesting kind of test case in just how much John Wayne, the industry, and the public were willing to put up with. This is something that John Wayne had wanted to do for years and years and years. And he was terribly, terribly concerned that the film was not going to be taken seriously or it was going to be ignored.
When his 3-hour-plus epic is released in October 1960, reviews are far from glowing. The Alamo is considered a failure.
Yeah, the movie was a critical flop, but as a testament to his box office power, fans still lined up to see this movie. Still, the movie can't survive the critics and the bad press. John Wayne just can't get out of the red.
Duke is facing mounting debt because of the failure of the movie. His company, Batjack, has to sell off guns, lights, memorabilia, all associated with the movie. John Wayne eventually reaches a deal with United Artists, and they agree to release the movie. They eventually do make money with it, and it relieves John Wayne of his financial burden brought on by the failed company. It seemed like everybody associated with the project made money on it, except, of course, for Duke.
Of course, I like any kind of a loser better than a winner.
Even with the initial harsh reviews, Wayne campaigns hard for Oscar nominations. And he succeeds. The Alamo earns 7 Academy Award nominations, but it only takes home the award for Best Sound. Wayne continues making one movie after another. He's still cash-strapped after the Alamo fiasco, but his 1962 movie with John Ford, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, is a commercial success. The following year, How the West Was Won is a massive hit that goes on to gross $50 million worldwide.
After struggling for a while, he hit the jackpot, Mr. Wayne did, with How the West Was Won, and Paramount signed him for a 7-year deal. He seemed to go from one thing to the next. His money would go as quickly as it came, but these projects helped put him over the top.
Known for his generosity, Wayne also likes to indulge his family and spoil them with gifts.
He could never stop shopping from catalogs. And the idea that one of the wealthiest, most famous movie stars in the world was buying, I don't know what it would have been, toasters and things like that, tricycles for his children through catalogs, there's something kind of charming about it. He was also famous for the gifts that he would bestow on people. I think it indicates the intense desire to please that motivates a lot of people who come from poverty.
In 1962, Wayne buys one of his most cherished possessions, a 136-foot former Navy minesweeper he calls the Wild Goose. He shells out $116,000 for it, and later spends even more to remodel the boat to his specifications. He loves to sail around with his family and says the boat is the only place he can relax and forget about his work.
He'd tootle around in the thing, and you can kind of see him out there, like, calling the bombs. The Minesweeper was an indulgence, much like a fancy sports car for a guy in a midlife crisis. That's what he needed to be happy, fine. Shortly thereafter, though, he did buy the 4,000 acres estate in Arizona. It was also during this period that he was investing, perhaps imprudently, in hotels and real estate and shrimp ventures in Central America and in Mexico. I'm not sure what he was thinking. Maybe he didn't know either, but I think he was having fun.
His 1963 comedy western, McLintock, produced by Backjack Productions and co-starring his son Patrick, is another box office success.
Mr. McClintock?
Yeah?
I'm a good hand with cattle, Mr. McClintock. Like a job.
Well, you look strong enough.
The bad taste left by the Alamo seems to have faded, but Wayne is about to face his most serious crisis yet.
I've got a touch of hangover, bureaucrat. Don't push me.
In 1964, at 57 years old, Wayne is diagnosed with lung cancer, the result from filming The Conqueror on the radioactive Utah desert less than 10 years earlier.
So at the time, it would be pretty much a death sentence in Hollywood. He can't fully admit what's really going on with him. He's admitted to the hospital and it's announced that he's going in for ankle surgery. And then the story kind of changes and he's being treated for an abscessed lung. But what he has is actually a complicated operation where they have to remove some of his ribs and his left lung.
Wayne is back in surgery again 5 days later, after his stitches rip, and he starts to experience swelling. After 3 weeks, he leaves the hospital, but he's weak and has lost a lot of weight.
Initially, Wayne tries to keep it a secret, but secrets, of course, are never kept in Hollywood. He doesn't back down, he doesn't apologize, he doesn't become a spokesperson for kind of, like telling people to quit smoking or anything like that. It basically becomes part of that sort of take charge, individual, I'm gonna do what I'm going to do persona that is incorporated into the toughness of John Wayne.
In the mid-60s, Wayne does a few more TV appearances and movies. 1969 sees the release of a John Wayne classic blockbuster. In True Grit, he plays a role that seems tailor-made for him. One-eyed U.S. Marshal Rooster Cogburn.
It takes him more than $14 million as of September of 1970. Wayne's profit earned him another $788,000 on top of his $1 million salary. He also received 15% of gross TV sales, which is a wonderful deal and very lucrative.
For True Grit, he receives rave reviews and his one and only Academy Award. Throughout all the ups and downs of his career, his fans are loyal, and they've helped keep him on the top 10 box office stars list every year since 1949, with the only exception being 1958. In 1971, he's #1 for the 4th time in his career.
By now, he's really stepping up his TV appearances. He's on The Glenn Campbell Show. He appears in a Raquel Welch special. And he even shows up on Laugh-In in a bunny suit, which goes to show, even the Duke had a sense of humor.
By 1973, Wayne officially separates from his wife Pilar, though the two never divorce. The same year, he releases a spoken word album called America, Why I Love Her. The title says it all, and so does the album cover, John Wayne in all his American cowboy glory. It becomes a smash hit, selling more than 100,000 copies in just 2 weeks.
To his credit, he also films a few public service announcements for the Cancer Society, encouraging people to go and get checkups. Because of those spots, people started making large donations, and they still do to this day because John Wayne made it mainstream.
Although he's not well, in 1976 he starts work on one more movie, The Shootist.
Apparently, John Wayne really wanted to star in The Shootist, but his health was failing, and no one knew. He was beginning at this point to develop heart disease. The producers of The Shootist found out, and they had difficulty securing the insurance they needed to complete the project. Wayne wanted the project so badly, he invested $250,000 of his own money in the insurance policy. He knew what his passion was. He was prepared to sacrifice to get it.
In The Shootist, he plays an aging gunfighter who's dying of cancer.
He played somebody who was indomitable, who had a force of personality, and who had a history that rose above all the obstacles that he faced. In that sense, The Shootist was a perfect kind of final curtain call for John Wayne to have on screen.
It's getting harder for Wayne to make movies, but he still needs to earn money. The expense of the wild goose, his medical bills, and his low cash flow are stressing him out. So he agrees to make TV commercials for Great Western Bank.
At this point, John Wayne had to do what some people felt was selling out. He agreed to a deal that he needed to keep himself financially afloat. The deal paid him $350,000 in 1977, going up by another $50,000 a year for each of the next 2 years. The deal was able to help the bank as well. It was able to use John Wayne's endorsement and appearances to raise significant cash flow and increase savings for the bank.
By now, he's got a whole lot of health issues. He has chronic bronchitis. In early 1978, he has open heart surgery to replace a valve. And to top it all off, he's got hepatitis. He's lost tons of weight, and he seems like he's wasting away.
By the end of 1978, Wayne starts having severe stomach problems. Perhaps seeing the writing on the wall, he signs his will on October 5th, 1978. In January 1979, doctors find a large malignancy in his stomach. During a 9.5-hour surgery, his stomach, gallbladder, and some lymph nodes are removed.
He makes his final appearance in 1979, presenting the Best Picture award at the Oscars. He's really, really sick at this point, but he tells the world, stick around, I'm not going anywhere. Good plan, but it doesn't quite work out.
In May, Congress approves a bill to award him the Congressional Gold Medal, the civilian equivalent of the Congressional Medal of Honor. Wayne dies of stomach cancer less than a month later, on June 11th, 1979. He's 72 years old. He leaves behind 7 children and 21 grandchildren. During his career, his movies grossed an estimated $500 million worldwide. But that's far from the amount left in his estate. On June 11th, 1979, one of the most popular movie stars of all time, John Wayne, has died. But death doesn't keep his legacy from growing.
He's a huge icon and a legend. In fact, the day he dies, the flame of the Olympic torch at the LA Coliseum, they light it in his honor. It stays lit until his funeral 4 days later.
Wayne's funeral on June 15th is a private ceremony that his family holds at sunrise to avoid crowds. He's buried in Newport Beach, where he had lived for many years. For nearly 20 years, his grave is unmarked. In Hollywood, everyone mourns his loss. To his fans, he had seemed indestructible. They can hardly believe he's gone, and his family is devastated. Soon the world will find out all the details of his estate. Many celebrities use a private document known as a living trust, where they can hide their assets only for the eyes of their trustee.
John Wayne did not use a revocable living trust. Instead, he used a will. And because of that, his estate is public for all the world to see. We know who he left his money to and how he left it to them. If he had chosen to do a trust, he could have avoided the prying eyes, and chances are he would have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars in court fees as well. In some ways, it's not surprising that John Wayne did a will as opposed to a trust. He wasn't living the typical Hollywood leading man lifestyle. He seemed like a simple guy who wasn't into extravagant spending. And he was, after all, a good old American cowboy.
Wayne's will is filed a week after his death.
His estate was valued at about $6.8 million. $1 million from his real estate, another $5.7 million from his other assets, and an annual income of about $100,000 on top of that. Wayne did not provide for his last wife in his will, but he already had a separation agreement in place for her when he passed away. He did create a trust fund for his first wife, Josephine, who was to receive $3,000 a month from his will. And his son, Michael, would receive ownership of Bat Jack as well as his film library.
John Wayne spent improvidently, he earned lavishly, and he died without the sort of estate that would have created bitter estate wars. Well, good. I think he was entitled to spend every dime he meant, and if he wanted to invest in Xanadu in the plains of Mexico, God bless him. That it didn't work out, no harm, no foul. We still love John Wayne and still like watching his movies.
While many of John Wayne's investments unfortunately didn't pan out, there was one that paid off big for his estate. In 1980, his partner sells the Arizona ranching business, and half of the sale price goes to the John Wayne estate. This nets the estate about $22.5 million, one of John Wayne's most lucrative investments.
Wayne's Newport Beach house is also sold in 1980 for $3.48 million. The same year, Wayne's family is presented with his Congressional Gold Medal. The inscription reads simply, John Wayne, American. A month before he died, many people had supported a bill to authorize Congress to issue the medal.
Everyone from President Carter to movie stars like Katharine Hepburn and Gregory Peck, they all wrote letters in support of the bill. His old friend and co-star Maureen O'Hara, she even testified in Congress.
I couldn't trust anyone else in this house to do anything correctly.
She suggested the medal's inscription, which really sums up his legacy perfectly. An American.
After John Wayne's death, his family created Wayne Enterprises, and their objective was to control the image, to control the use to which his name was put. They wanted to protect the brand before we commonly spoke of brands.
Wayne's oldest son, Michael, heads up the company, as well as Batjack Productions. It wouldn't be long before someone tries to take advantage of the brand that Wayne's family is trying to protect. In 1993, a battle erupts over the rights to the Batjack-produced 1963 Western, McLintock.
McLintock was produced in 1963, and then warring entities sought to control its rights. It resulted in nasty litigation, and in the end, the court held that the McLintock copyright was permitted to lapse. A person who holds a copyright, if they want to maintain it beyond a certain period, must reapply or take steps to do so. One of the entities controlling McLintock didn't do it, and so now the film is in public domain. Both versions of the film, the authorized version and the unauthorized version.
Good luck, Daddy.
Afraid it's a packed court.
Both versions hit the market, but Michael Wayne claims he's the only one who has good prints of the movie, the legitimate restored version MPI puts out. He worries that releasing a subpar version will hurt the John Wayne brand, but the home video rights are picked up.
In the wake of the litigation concluding that the copyright had expired, Paramount picked up a copy of the film in 2005 and now owns rights to it.
In 2003, Michael Wayne dies of heart failure following complications from lupus. He's 68 years old. His brother Ethan takes over at Wayne Enterprises, and Michael's widow Gretchen takes over at Batjack Productions. A battle is brewing, and 3 years later, it boils over.
Apparently, Wayne's children and their respective successors continue to battle over Wayne memorabilia, even over who should possess the Congressional Medal. It seems really tragic and really sad. He's been dead now for many years, and his family is still squabbling over what he left behind.
Meanwhile, John Wayne's legacy keeps growing, and before long, his kids are in a standoff over the value of his estate.
While John Wayne's family didn't initially fight when the estate was open, ultimately there was trouble with his heirs.
On January 1st, 2010, Wayne Enterprises was proposed to be replaced by John Wayne Enterprises. However, the children and survivors couldn't agree on what to do, and Aisa, one of Wayne's daughters, demanded to be bought out. She and the estate could not agree on the fair market value of her share. The total estate value was placed at somewhere between $10 and $14 million, thus giving her a couple $1 million windfall, give or take $100,000.
Despite any bickering over the value of his assets, John Wayne's iconic status remains virtually untouched. Even years after his death, he manages to stay one of America's favorite stars. In the months and years after his death, John Wayne's larger-than-life image shows no sign of diminishing.
John Wayne came to embody an attitude. John Wayne came to embody an ideal idea of America itself.
He's a Hollywood legend, and the honors to his memory start pouring in quickly. On June 20th, 1979, less than 2 weeks after he dies, the Orange County Airport in California is renamed John Wayne Airport. A massive 9-foot bronze statue of Wayne is placed outside the terminal in 1982. The same year, his childhood home in Iowa is turned into a tourist attraction, where every year there's a John Wayne birthday celebration. In 1985, Wayne's family establishes the John Wayne Cancer Foundation, after having promised him they'd use his name to continue his fight against cancer. In the very first Harris poll of America's favorite movie stars in 1994, Wayne claims the number 2 spot following Clint Eastwood. The following year, he's number 1, an amazing 16 years after his death. In 1999, the American Film Institute names him one of the greatest male screen legends of all time.
After the terrorist attack in New York on September 11th, 2001, John Wayne's tape, America, Why I Love Her, was reproduced and broadcast, and it became a hit all over again, with radio stations nationwide playing it. And I think there was something soothing to a nation of jangled nerves about hearing the Duke remind us that we could be okay in the world.
In 2007, he's named the top moneymaker of all time in the annual survey of movie exhibitors that started in 1932. More than 2 decades after his death, he beats stars like Tom Cruise and Julia Roberts, proving the enduring power of his box office draw.
In October of 2011, more than 700 items are auctioned off, bringing in $5.4 million to John Wayne's estate. His last driver's license brings in $90,000, and the eye patch that he wore in True Grit brought in $48,000. But the biggest sellers were the hats that he wore. Not bad, $120,000.
Part of the proceeds benefit his John Wayne Cancer Foundation. Wayne continues to inspire and be idolized by millions of fans. He's the only actor to be in the annual Harris poll of top 10 favorite actors every year since it started in 1994, and the only dead actor to ever appear on the list. In 2013, 34 years after his death, he comes in at number 7, ahead of Meryl Streep and Brad Pitt.
There have been tons of books written about John Wayne, but in 2013, John Wayne Enterprises put out John Wayne, the Genuine Article. It includes tons of never-before-seen letters, telegrams, photos, even a piece of his unfinished autobiography. And who knows what might have been revealed if he'd ever finished that memoir.
Some of Wayne's other kids and grandkids continue the acting tradition, such as his 2 sons Patrick and Ethan and his grandson Brendan. In August 2011, his yacht, the Wild Goose, is placed on the National Register of Historic Places. It still sails out of Newport Beach for private charters. He sold it just before he died, but reportedly, his ghost still haunts his most treasured possession. Though he's been dead for over 3 decades, John Wayne's legacy, and maybe even his ghost, still loom large.
I don't think there'll ever be another John Wayne in American film history. There's something mythical and larger than life about him even now.
When you think of John Wayne, you still think of a man's man. He's the true, iconic American man. Apple pie, cowboys, John Wayne, they all go together.
John Wayne was one of the most popular stars of the 20th century. If there is one actor who represents the Western and therefore represents America in the 20th century, it's John Wayne.